5 reasons why men aren't approaching you. You find yourself telling your friends all the time, I'm going out, I'm going to the grocery store, I'm going out with my girlfriends, and they're being approached and I'm not being approached. And like Antia always says, you can meet somebody at the gas station or at a grocery store, but it doesn't happen to me. Well, do I have a video for you today that actually not only gives you the reason why, but also will give you some solutions to shift that. Hey, I'm Antia Boyd with Magnetize Your Man, and together with my husband Brody, we've been helping thousands of successful women all over the world to get the committed, connected, and long-term relationship they desire fast. So let's go ahead and dive right in. One reason why men aren't approaching you is because you carry the Cruella de Vil effect. Now, what I learned, thanks to my incredible fashion expert, Natalie Chaperon, that there is a scale in fashion. It's an energetic scale that she created. And on the one side is Cruella de Vil, which is extremely intimidating. It's sort of the bitch effect. And it's oftentimes represented by wearing sort of sharper things, pointy things. However, what I mean with that is it doesn't necessarily have to be you wearing high contrast colors and things like that, but also your energy. Right? So what I oftentimes hear that men are kind of feeling like she feels like a little spiky. And as the saying goes, as a matter of fact, my husband came up with that. It's like, how do porcupines mate? So that's the thing, right? So the man is kind of thinking, I don't know about that, right? Like that's going to be a little painful. And and how if you actually carry the Cruella de Vil effect, as opposed to what my fashion coach called the Miss Santa Claus effect, which is like extremely approachable, more like of a round energy as opposed to spiky, which is also more welcoming and warm energy, right? It's for many different reasons, and part of it can really be because you're running a lot of masculine energy. Maybe your mom had sort of this Cruella de Vil effect. So there could be many different reasons why. But I already gave you a hint and a tip what to do if that's the case for you, which is actually sort of round, sort of like your appearance a little bit. You could actually even just visualize like just a bubble around you, something softer, maybe a softer color. And you notice how something happens inside of you. Now it's called a nervous system shift, but it doesn't matter at this moment. It just shifts sort of like your energy. And out of the sudden, the same man is actually starting to approach you and give it a chance. Take a risk. Now, another reason why men aren't approaching you is and could be because you are terrified to be seen. So what I oftentimes see with my incredible clients is that they've experienced incredible traumas that I don't wish on anyone, of abuse, psychological abuse, narcissistic abuse, physical, and of course also sexual abuse within the family, right, when they were growing up. And so what that translates into is specifically if there was like a rage energy in there, right, and the more visible they were, the worse off they were, then the nervous system is saying, well, wait a minute, let me become invisible because that way I'm not the target. And even though right now you actually do want to be seen, you want to be the lighthouse, because otherwise how is your man going to find you? Like your nervous system will not allow that, right? So your intention of meeting your man and having him approach you directly violates the safety sense of the nervous system. Hence, you're starting to send mixed signals. Now, what we know about mixed signals is they either confuse the man, and a confused mind says no, or the energy actually cancels each other out, and you become energetically invisible to a man. So he may just like see someone more than you, and he doesn't know why. And so what you can do in that moment is like actually, first of all, acknowledge that it's safe to be seen by the right man, by a quality man, by a trustworthy man. So kind of think about like, well, under which circumstances would I feel safe to be seen? Of course, there's more to it, but this is the first step. And then also just kind of like taking in sort of what the energy you're getting from a man, as if you're taking in sort of a Baskin-Robbins tasting spoon. So just tiny, it's tiny. And so just a tiny bit of attention and allowing that to quote unquote digest inside of you and see how that feels, right? But just really allowing yourself to just take one baby step at a time and then notice how it actually shifts and you start to feel safer to be seen. Now, the next reason why men aren't approaching you, because there is simply no opening. Now, this goes back to a story way back when my husband and I did live events, and we were also doing sponsoring tables at singles events. Now, of course, as you can guess, at those singles events were some clients that we were working with. Now, we, of course, knew what the challenges of those clients were because we were working with them. Duh. And so what was really interesting is that this particular client who complained that no man was ever approaching her, there was no opening for a man to approach her. So, for instance, there were those tables. And I think there could be 7 people sitting on a table. So she sat on a table where she was like the last person. So a man would have the courage to walk up to a table of 7 women, which is just not going to happen. You know, oftentimes what my husband also talks about when he did field days back in the day with men and helping men to overcome approach anxiety is that oftentimes they were looking for women where there was an opening, where there was some warmth. And oftentimes that meant either a woman going by herself to get herself something to drink, or just kind of like breaking free from the crowd for a moment, just opening up the circle, right? So if you're standing in a circle with your girlfriends, like just create more like a half circle, so men can actually come in and start talking to you. So those are just small ways how you can shift. You know, also checking your body language, and you may have heard about this. Are you crossing your arms? Are you crossing your legs? And this is so unconscious. You're like, Antia, I didn't even think about that. And so that's why I want to bring it to your awareness and maybe even remind yourself before you go out, right? Just uncross your legs, uncross your arms, or whatever else you're doing that kind of like could deter a man from approaching you, because he may think like you're not available, you don't want to be approached, which obviously is not true. Now, another reason why men aren't approaching you is because you have secret resentment towards men. Now, to be completely transparent, that used to be me. And how I found that out is I was actually approached by a guy, a well-meaning guy, not like someone who meant to date me. At least I don't think he did. But he just approached me, and he could just tell he was a man coach, and he could just tell that there was something I was carrying, that I was, secretly angry and resentful towards men. And he said, it really shows because you're also making some sort of like emasculating comments and things like that. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, because when I go on dates, when I even go on dates, because I don't really generally get approached, I didn't really get approached. And I didn't understand why. My girlfriends didn't really understand why either. But this coach actually made sense of it for me, because he was actually like telling me like, yeah, I mean, you're just basically sort of, the alpha female, and you know it all better. And how that shows up, there's sort of like this energy that you carry that has sort of like a slight angry undertone. And it's funny, or maybe not funny, but I always tell my women, I wish I could be the mouse on the wall, because I would actually see what are sort of like your facial expressions. And I think the best way to completely, to potentially compare that is, of course, also Love is Blind, right? So even though this is, of course, a social experiment, it's a reality TV show, people know that on camera, but they just don't have enough willpower to control those, whatever, 12 hours a day or 14 hours a day, every moment of like their facial expressions, what they say, what they do, how they breathe. They can't fake all of that. So sometimes you can very well see it in Love is Blind moments. And, I will do some commentaries as well that was like requested here on that show as well, because there's so much to be learned. But there's something about, where my face was just like not really that joyful and it wasn't really that open. And as a matter of fact, when I met a man, I was kind of already like, when he said, hey, good to meet you. And I'd be like, hey, I'm Antia, I would love to get to know you. And I already hate you or I dislike you because you will let me down. You will disappoint me. You will reject me. You will abandon me, right? And then, of course, that sends a very confusing message to a man, like what's going on? And so because men can sense that, men are actually more intuitive than you think, by the way. They may not have as many words as we women do, but they're actually very intuitive, and they act on that intuition. And so you may wonder, why am I not being approached? I was like just in line, the man was right in front of me, it would have been a perfect situation. There's something that you do where your system tightens, contracts, constricts, and it's repelling to a man, because obviously he doesn't want to threaten you. He's not going to come in and make you feel even more uncomfortable, right? He wants to protect you. He wants you to feel comfortable. But depending on the level of confidence of a man, he may say something or he may not. And this leads me to the next reason why men aren't approaching you, which is you seem preoccupied. Girlfriend, do me a favor. When you sit at Starbucks, please don't scroll on your phone. Try to, look up, take a breath. When you read a book, when you write or journal, unless you don't want to meet anyone, that's fine. If you just sit there and you just want to get some work done, right? But if you're actually there, you want to meet someone, or if you want to want to make yourself available at the grocery store, or you want to make yourself available, I don't know, at the gas station. It's kind of funny though. Or, I met somebody in traffic, right? I just, he, we were sitting in traffic, right? The cars were next to each other. So we would kind of leave each other little messages. And he showed me his phone number, and then I sent him a message from my phone and so on. So we texted while we were in traffic. It's kind of funny. But anyway, so you can meet men really anywhere, but it's really about can you be sort of like in that open space? The same is true for your calendar. So you can already see what energy you're actually sending out to the universe and to the world. And that is, look at your calendar. Is there even space to meet anyone, to go on a date? Or is this just all super full because you don't want to spend one single minute by yourself? You always want to have something going on, because otherwise your old fears of not good enoughness or insecurity or shame are coming up, and you certainly don't want to deal with that. Now, that's of course the wrong approach, because you want to keep a vacuum open. You want to keep a space open for the man to come in and to actually, ask you out on a date. As a matter of fact, if you have a self-care day just for yourself, you're much more likely to attract a man into your life, because you're focusing on yourself and only yourself, as opposed to focusing on someone else. Even if it's your friend, or even if it's your family member, or even if it's work, it's different than if you actually really focus on caring for yourself. And to give you an example of that, actually there's two examples. So one was, my client came to me and she said, I'm not really getting invited to things. It's so weird. And my friends, they don't have any ill meaning towards me. I don't know what's going on. And sure enough, we found out that every time when the friend called, not to invite her to something, but just in general, she was always very busy. And I kind of put a smile on my face, because a friend of mine had just told me the very similar thing, that I said, oh, I was available to go to this conference with you. And she's like, oh, really? Because every time when I talk to you, you say you're crazy busy. So also be aware of your language and what actually people think. What real estate do you have in the forefront of their mind? Now, as you may have noticed by now, a lot has to do with energy. When you want to get approached by a man, it doesn't even matter what you wear, or not even what you say, but so much is about energy. Men are very much responding to energy before they even sometimes see the woman. They will feel the woman first, especially the more masculine a man is. And this is for many different reasons. And so, so one thing you want to learn is how can I shift my energy that then of course translates into my body language, translates into how I speak to men, how I look at men. Do I smile at them? And so on. Another thing I did, I I didn't smile at men. I looked the opposite direction. So then I was surprised that I never got approached, right? So obviously that doesn't really work that well. Next, if you haven't yet, take my free love quiz and virtual coaching session to get the committed, loving, and long-term relationship that you desire fast without trust issues, frustration, and attracting any more emotionally unavailable men by simply hopping over to getlovequiz.com or simply click that link below here in the description as well. I had so much fun shooting this video for you today. Leave me a comment. I'll talk to you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.